Well, Josh and Holly, I appreciate you doing this. This is anytime we get a chance to, chat with folks like yourself that are deep in it on a daily basis and doing it at a high level is really awesome. So just want to jump right in. If you don't mind, Josh, and then Holly, you can go. If you can just give a little background on your current role, and then we'll jump into some of the questions I have.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And likewise, it's awesome to always fun to talk to you. So my current role, I'm head of event technology and innovation at Atlassian. And my role is to oversee all the components that build up the tech stack that support and drive all our events for marketing across the company. And as a result of that, we're always digging into what's newest, what's the great, where do we direct? So what do we invest in today that gets us where we want to be in 3 years? So that we're always preemptive on that. So it's an exciting place to be.
That's cool. Thanks, Josh. And now how about you, Holly?
Yeah, so I work on the strategy and production side of things. So my background is as a creative director, and then I was brought into Atlassian a little over a year ago, and working on event strategy and attendee journey specifically, and also helping with, I already said this, production side. So essentially what I do is I work with internal teams cross-organizationally as well, and creative agencies to develop the attendee journey, both from the in-person experience and the digital experience. So Josh and I cross worlds frequently because we're always looking at what tech we can use within the live experience, like in person, and then how do we really look at what's trending with the digital experience and try and really hit the mark with those audiences and their expectations. And also, what kind of content are we trying to put out there, and how are we syndicating it during the event, but also post-event? Because I think a lot of companies are thinking about a digital event as like a one and done, like, I know I dropped it, it's good. And we're trying to look at it from a more holistic view, as like a digital event is really, it's a year-long experience campaign. So I went a little deeper there, but
no, it's good. And we'll try to go really deep there too. And now for context, are you guys focused on the flagship Atlassian events, or is that your primary focus, or do you kind of think broader than that?
Yes. There's certainly, it's like, and Holly, you can jump in too, but I mean, like we deal with the flagship events, which is our tier one. But I mean, we have slightly smaller ones that are targeting specific markets. We have, sort of our regional events. We have like there's a whole suite, and trying to how they all weave together, and how one isn't just an end point that you participate in an event and then that's the end. We want to sort of nurture and bring people along and engage them in different ways so that they get what they need, and they can participate either in more events and community and learning and whatever that is. So it's not just a quick, yes, it's the flagship event, so they come to that and then celebrate that. That's the end. We want to make sure that there is no endpoint there. But yeah, it's all the events across the stack.
That's awesome. Now it's interesting because as I was thinking about, it's excited to interview you both for this. It feels like the role of the event strategist, or even the role of the event technology, head of event technology, is a fairly new role in the corporate space. And you see it, you're starting to see it more and more, but it's definitely not something I believe I saw, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe it was construed as something else, but what's your guys' take on it, and why do you think it's evolving in this way, and where do you think it goes from here? Josh, or Holly, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So yeah. I agree with you. I started out my career in events with a creative agency, and this is just over the past like 9 or 10 years. What I've seen is events were predominantly run by the ops teams or production teams within the marketing arm, right? And so a lot of the event producers were really just looking at it like, how can we bring clowns out or something like that, you know, so there's 100% been more of a strategic shift to what is the rationale behind everything that we're doing? How do we tie back every single one of the creative elements that we're doing for not only this event, but across events, as Josh was talking about, because it's really about looking at your portfolio of events and how your different personas are interacting with you and your brand and your products at each one of these touch points. So I know that on our team, even in the last like 2 or 3 years, we're digging more and more into the strategy and making sure that the strategy is the underbed of everything that we're doing, so that we have a rationale and the why behind it. And then following that up with more data and measurement to see how it performed. Because if you're not looking at how, even if it's a tiny little like photo op, how many of your attendees actually interacted with that photo op, and if it was, you know, a third, then what's something you can do differently next time? So really looking at it strategically, but also making sure that the messaging from, you know, the top down, from like the top of marketing when you're hitting your keynotes all the way down to that expo experience is also aligned, and then again spread across your digital. So it's gotten much broader and much bigger.
Yeah, it's very absolutely. And Josh, what about from your perspective, the event technology side?
I'm just chuckling over Holly saying it's gotten much bigger. At like literally everything has grown exponentially in this world.
Yeah.
To do with events. I mean, I'm similar to Holly in that, you know, I came from agency, which I think so many of us did in this world, because it gives you that, it gave us all that breadth of experience, and we got to see lots of different things. I think the event technology role has evolved a bit. Like there was always somebody who looked after the tech or something like that, but it was very almost reactive. It was almost like, we need to solve a problem for this event. What tech do we throw at it to solve that problem for this client, and then we move on to the next. Where I kind of see that, you know, sort of my role and others like me, we're now trying to think proactively. We're saying, what building blocks do we put in place to support things, like I said before, not now, but in 2 years and 3 years, so that we've got sort of that firm foundation that everything's being built on, that we've got sort of the data layers, and the like, data is so important to everything now. So, you know, how do we connect into all the various corporate systems the way we need to, and have data all flowing? And then what are the experiential elements that we bolt on top, that are part of the attendee journey? And I see Holly getting excited on those, but they change. They're like flavors of excitement that people like. This year something's going to work, maybe next year it's got to be something different. So you need that stable base to support those sort of ever-changing elements that are on top, while maintaining sort of the thread and the professionalism of those digital events. So I think the role is becoming more common in enterprise, because we're trying to be proactive and build a strategy around it rather than solve problems. So like I said, you can plan for being, how do we be the best 3 years from now? How do we be the best 5 years from now? And what do we need to do now, today, to make that happen?
And to follow up with what Josh is saying, like he and I have a mutual curiosity about like, what if, like, what could we do? Like, how do we take the technology that exists and then bend it in new ways? And really look at ways we can integrate everything, because I think a lot of people in this industry, even some of the creative that I've seen, is a lot of like rinse and repeat. This worked for us last year, so we're just going to repeat it this year. And I think that there's validity to keeping what works, but also questioning, is there actually a way to even elevate it so that we're still fundamentally doing what works, but we're trying to make it new and different, so that the experience is new and different for the attendees. I know that if I go to a conference every year and it's the same old, like why would I bother coming, right? I know exactly what they're going to do, versus trying to look for ways to really push the boundaries, integrate technology, look at activations. That's one of my favorite things. But all of that is yeah, Josh and I've had a lot of like what if conversations.
I think one enables the other, Holly. Like you dream up these amazing what ifs can we do, and a few years ago the technology wasn't there to like really dig after, like we create a digital experience and it's sort of one size fits all. And now with like, as we're getting more sophisticated, as we're adding more elements to things, we start creating these individual pathways for people and extreme personalization and thinking about, attendee journeys or discovery journeys based on who you are, so that you're going through, so that the content, the event is really tailored to you, and those experiences change a bit. And I think the technology is catching up, with, I mean, the scary word of AI, but I mean, there's lots of things outside of AI that enable those things as well. So yeah, we totally feed off each other.
We do. And I'll just add one more comment because it ties back to your original strategy question too, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, keep going.
Essentially, so, like Josh and we can sit at our levels and we can brainstorm and we can go like, what if, and let's bend things. But we're still in this cycle of trying to sort of manage up and explain why what we're talking about is relevant to the stakeholders who are specifically our events. You've got your C-suite that come and they want to walk out onto the stage, they want to give their keynote, they want to walk away, right? And that doesn't work anymore, right? Like the world changed with COVID and how we all went digital, and so many people that are presenter level are so comfortable where they're at with that. This is what I used to do, and now we're back to what we used to do, so we're just going to do that. And that's not, no, the world has changed. And so trying to help sort of work with that change management mindset that what happened during the COVID years and the digital years fundamentally changed the way we do events. And so a lot of the strategy supports that us kind of working on that mindset with them to shorten their keynotes, to make it more visual, to figure out what kind of like fun little sound bites or media bits that we can weave into things, even from the show floor, right? It's video is predominantly more engaging than like text on a screen, right? Which we know like fundamentally, but like how can we look at bringing things more to life that way in like power punch snippets versus these like long drawn out keynotes, these long drawn out breakouts, that type of thing. So it's something we're really exploring at Atlassian.
So you guys have both mentioned like this attendee journey in a few different ways. Sure. And that experience. So there's the attendee journey within an event, and then you have a portfolio of events in it. It sounds like the way you guys think about the world is connecting the dots and is as best as you can. What are the ways you're strategically trying to connect the dots, and how do you guys work together to do that? Is there like, it seems like you're year round, so I doubt there's a beginning and an end like there is for a lot of just one-off events. So how are you strategically kind of starting in that attendee journey, and how are you evolving that, or is it just kind of something that you're picking at over time?
Do you want me to go, Josh?
Go for
it. It's an evolution. So Team, our annual flagship event is Team, and it happens every year. I'll just give a quick plug. It's happening in Vegas at the end of April. Team 24, really excited about it. And that is like our flagship event. It's our biggest event. And then what kind of offshoots from that are team tours. We do some market events that Josh and I work on. I'm really tagged to more of those top tier events, those bigger events like Team and some of the market events. But we're looking at how we can cascade it down. And even last year in FY23, we started experimenting with how does it cascade down, and how can we capitalize on our community? Because Atlassian has an amazing community. Like we have people that have been like cheering for Jira for the last 20 years. They have like Jira sneakers and Jira t-shirts, and it's really great and fun to chat with them. And so really like capitalizing on our community and how do we fuel the funnel for our community leaders to even take some of the content or even like an icebreaker that is aligned to Impossible Alone, which is our theme, and really kind of enabling them along with our like sales teams and things like that. So yeah, so we're thinking about it across the portfolio of events, but we're also looking at it like, how does it stream down to the different tiers of events, even down into our webinars. And when I say that it's a work in progress, we've been slowly working on, especially Josh in particular, like how can we templatize some of like the websites that we're doing, or yeah, all of the things. I know that's super generic to say all of the things, but it's all the things. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Josh,
I mean, Holly, I mean, it kind of, Chris, it kind of goes both ways, because Holly will come up with, you know, these great ideas, and then come to me and say, hey, how can we do this? Is this possible? And it may be, or it's like, I don't know, let's go find out. Or it drives the other way. It drives the other way, where I'll find some technology and say, hey, this I think can plug in. And then we go to Holly and say, how do you like brainstorm this? How do we figure out how this can help us?
yeah.
Because I just sort of have an inkling of what it can do. And then let's take it and think about it strategically and see how it might fit in. And then I guess another piece, like Holly talked about community and other things, part of what I do is go and dig into what technology are other groups using, and other teams. And then how can that integrate, and how can we plug bits of their site into ours, or vice versa? Or how can we have logins pass from one to the other? Because I mean, something as simple as a login, it's a piece of friction for an attendee.
Mhm.
So that registration process, the logging in when they come back to view it, is the content gated or not, and what does it guide them into? And if they stay within our ecosystem and go watch a Loom video, or go to engage in something in community, do they have to log in again? Like, is there, like, how can we streamline that entire experience so that we get rid of the friction points, so that somebody can just simply follow their sort of discovery journey as they move into the event, and then beyond to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One thing I would add to that too is like we're looking at, I mentioned like community-led conferences. And so like in FY23, we started exploring just like event in a box, right? Like if we could run a small like leader-led meeting where we can give them the tools and the key pieces of information from team, and let them be able to like cascade that to their local communities, right? And local leaders that are coming in. And that's both people that are familiar with Atlassian or just want to know more about Atlassian, because at the end of the day, what we want to have people remember is that like, it's what am I trying to say? That people are looking for proof points from a customer story level, right? So the basis of what we're trying to do is, how do we take like the strategy and the key points that we would love for all of our customers and attendees to know, and package them up in a way that resonates the most. And I know it sounds like I'm veering off from what Josh was saying, but it's actually connected with that. It's like, how do we take the technology and be able to make the content engaging and interesting? Because, you know, like if we have 50 breakout sessions that are not very engaging, then it doesn't matter that we made 50 breakout sessions and put them on a platform for somebody to watch. Like nobody's gonna go through those. So really it's just trying to like take the technology, take the content, take the strategy, and figure out what really engages people. And we have had a big push to really like focus on customer and customer stories and points, because people are looking to hear like, did it work for you? Right. I mean, that's what all of like Amazon reviews are, or, you know, like before I buy anything, like I'm going to like Wirecutter with the New York Times and like, what's the best like hair dryer, you know? So really looking at ways that people consume information, and finding how the technology fits and how we need to rethink our content to get it to it. I know that was like a huge, like whoosh,
No,
but
that's great. It actually, so you're 3.5 weeks out from Team 24,
yes.
right? So from a strategy perspective, I'm assuming your content is set for the most part.
Yes. You
Where-
know, presenters are always changing things
Yeah,
up
yeah,
at the
yeah,
last minute.
yeah.
Let's be real.
Totally. What do you kind of focus on right now, 3 weeks out? What are you thinking about 3 weeks out?
Josh, do you want to go first? I feel like I've answered a
No,
lot.
I was
Need
gonna
some-
either
I'm
way.
sure. Yeah, well, I mean, 3 weeks out, it's closing loose ends. right? It's what are the pieces that didn't kind of that aren't complete, and drawing them all up together. And then that often involves chasing down many other teams to fill in blanks. It's sort of taking one last step back and saying, let's click through each different attendee journey, like every perspective of who's going through this, and say, are there any things that we've missed along the way that makes it smooth for them to go sort of from point A to point B through all the content or through the in-person event, just to make sure that everything's in place.
Yeah.
A heck of a lot of double checking
Yeah.
is going on.
And I'm going off of the radar here, so you can pull me back as well. But like you talk about the attendee journey for an event like Team 24, I have to imagine there's a number of attendee like types in your mind. If
Yeah.
ballpark, is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 50? Is it 2?
It's I think we have 5.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed
But it
to
also
say.
depends how you define that.
Yeah, it is true.
We
It
have an
is.
attendee type that is somebody who's buying a ticket, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's are they an attendee or a partner customer? Are they a sponsor or speaker? Like there's sort of the basic attendee
Yeah.
types that anybody in events would kind of be familiar with. But then those don't necessarily translate into the same thing that people like. What content do you want to engage in, or how do you want your event experience? You want to tailor those experiences, not necessarily within the confines of those definitions, but in the definitions of, are you a developer? Are you an executive? Are you an executive in this space? Like you can get finely tuned, but making sure that their experience and their, like it used to be tracks, right? Like we'd have, here's our 50 sessions and here's the tracks, the horizontal lines through that. And it's almost like you now, instead of having horizontal lines striking through the content and just saying session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these people have this journey where they come in and it's like, no, I'm going to jump to track 2 sessions, go to track 3, down to 1, and they're moving around, flowing that journey how they want to learn. And to me, it's really exciting is to look at the data and figure that stuff out to say, how can we make that a little more intuitive for people?
Totally.
Because
Making
people
recommendations.
jump. They're always after like what's going to capture their attention and what's relevant to them. And I
Yeah.
don't know that it aligns more with more like role and interest and what do they try to get out of the event, as opposed to perhaps what we've defined the tracks as, or what their attendee type is, during registration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, I can tell you, I just checked. We have 4 intended audiences, but we also have a lot of partners, a huge partner community that comes to Atlassian to talk about how their businesses are like enabling Atlassian products. Like they're also a type of customer support, right? Or customer learning, etc. And so it does, to Josh's, like Josh was talking about, like how do you tailor an experience to a particular intended audience type, right? So like you have your C-level, for example, right? Like your C-level, they're not going to be attending breakout sessions for the most part, right? They're not going to be looking to like look at large networking groups. They're looking for exclusive experiences with people that are at their same level, and they're also looking to talk with Atlassian leadership, right? So we work like within our internal team, we have people that are dedicated to, this is the C-level experience. This is the partners experience. These are the bulk of who come to our events are really like technical users, so IT technical people, but also there's a lot of like non-technical teams like HR and marketing that use Atlassian software as well. So it's really trying to look at the broad spectrum. How do we design the event that fits like the bulk of the people, but then how do we start to tailor as it like moves out with those intended audiences?
Yeah.
And that's even from the in-person experience and the digital experience, because again, C-suite is the same example. What are the odds that your CEO is going to sit and watch a 45-minute keynote? Like it's probably not going to happen, right? They'll read a blog post, or they might look at a highlights reel, maybe. So it's,
Yeah, I'd argue anybody, like the odds of people sitting, and it's no offense to the speakers, like they're fantastic, but
yeah.
people don't like engage in content. When I want to learn something on the internet, I don't go and find a speaker and watch a 90-minute recording of somebody on stage, hoping to get something that I'm interested in. So this gets back to how do we align how we're delivering content with how people want to absorb it in a digital world. Like they're digital and in person are totally different things. Like we have to acknowledge that and plan for each of them appropriately.
Yeah, that's, I mean, some of the areas I think about, Josh, you kind of hit on is how can you personalize that experience, that attendee experience as best as possible? Because even if you have, 20 tracks, you're still going to have nuances of an attendee that are going to want to jump, to different things. I also think, and I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, but ancillary content that supports what they were interested in to maybe connect the dots throughout the year is also very interesting. Do you guys think about that much, or how are you connecting them between the attendee persona or the attendee journey from event to event? Then we talked about the event. How do you connect it to the next event or the community event or whatever?
So again, this is like a work in progress. I think for everybody that's trying to do this, like there's no magic bullet.
Yep.
And there's no one right way, but a lot of it is just the basics of marketing, right? Let's trying to assess who do you want to come to this event, right? Like who is this event for? And that's just part of that strategy. Whereas, I've seen a lot of events that are just sort of like buckshot, like we want everybody to come, but no, that's not actually the right way to approach it. We want the right people to come. And if that means it's a smaller percentage of attendees who will actually like benefit from the experience, that's actually better than just saying like, whoosh, we got like 5,000 people here. But out of those 5,000 people, how many of them were actually interested in the product, want to learn more, or want to expand their existing business with us because they can see the benefits that our products and solutions are able to supply. So that's why it's, when we talked about like the broad portfolio, it's trying to figure out where a specific attendee is in their cycle of a portfolio events, because maybe they've only attended like a regional community event, but they're interested in coming to a bigger event. Like we have these market events that happen that are, we've had several internationally, and maybe they can make it to a market event, and that's like a positive experience for them, and they felt it was worth their time, because not only is it about the products and solutions, it's about like customers being able to like learn from other customers, right? So how are we engaging people so that they can build their own peer networks, which is huge top of mind for that attendee journey experience as well. And that's across the life cycle. We have a huge community presence, which I mentioned, but we're really looking at fostering that, helping other people talk to other people, right?
Yeah, you guys have an.
Can I just jump in for a sec? Let me give you a hard example of what you're talking about. You want people to move on from that event and then continue learning in the direction that they want to learn. So a really simple, sounding simple, but really difficult to implement well. Usually when people think about digital events, it's like watch a video and then say, what's up next? And here's our recommendations for what's up next. And there's an industry trend to say, well, we're excited about our event right now. So here's all our breakouts. We're going to recommend another breakout or the keynote from that event. But to an attendee who's trying to learn something, it doesn't matter so much that it happened in Las Vegas on this week, or Barcelona or Sydney. It doesn't matter where it came from. So if they want to continue learning on that thing, the standard set of recommendations shouldn't necessarily be just consider this. It doesn't need to be the set of videos that were recorded at that particular event. But what are the most accurate representation of your next step across other events that you've done, white papers, webinars, web pages, product, community? These are your recommendations to go next as your next steps. If you're interested in this video and you've enjoyed watching it, what is your discovery journey going to take you? Like, where is it going to take you? And not think of it within the confines of that event. And so like it's easy to say, but it's hard to.
No,
A lot of
As,
work.
as you both were talking, I was like, oh, wow, you guys have an interesting challenge as any multi-product organization would, because you have where the attendee is at in their adoption of a specific product, where they're at in the sales cycle, like,
Yes.
are they, you know, kind of because there's different types of personas in the sales cycle. And so that matrix is super fascinating when I could see when you're trying to put together an event, an agenda for an event. And then, you know, to your point, Josh, okay, maybe I'm really just super interested in going deeper in Jira, right? How do I get more information over the year that continues to kind of nurture me along that path as well? That's
And there's
really
definitely an
fascinating.
evolution to events, right? Like when
Yeah.
you're small, Holly talked about that buckshot technique. Like we're just gonna get everybody we can. And sometimes events are run for profit, right? That they're just looking at ticket sales and hosted buyers and things like that. Then you evolve and become more of an industry conference and things like that. And then you evolve again, and your events start become like thought leadership events where you're discussing the industry and solving problems for people, and it becomes less of a sale, like less of a sales, pitch or that kind of thing. By the way, we do happen to have products that'll help you if you want, but we're not here for that. We're here
Right.
to learn together and innovate, and it's that thought leadership jump that's when you get these really mature events that have impact at a really high level.
Yeah. And so, I guess I'll end it with this because I know we're over time. Atlassian has what? Flagship events, community events, and is there a third pillar of that? Is there a field events? Is that how kind of you would, or a 10 pillar thing?
Yeah, we actually have 5 tiers of events type.
Wow.
And I forget what the number is, Josh. Like if you were to add them all up, it's like over 500 per year.
Sure.
But yeah, we're looking at everything from like the top tier, like the flagship team event, market events, how we show up at other conferences, even from just like we're on a show floor or have like a speaking session. And by the way, Josh and I are not involved, like we're not involved in all of these. Like we have lots of different teammates that work on these. But yeah, even down to the webinar level, and really when we're looking at like post content syndication and how do we work cross organizationally within the marketing team, and not just marketing, like across the organization, like to what kind of content are we giving to like fuel like the sales team or even the university team, or vice versa, like what's sales doing or what's university doing that we could actually pull in to the event, especially the digital platform, that would be relevant to the attendee, right? You talked about, I want to go on that Jira learning journey. Well, okay, so here's a great session on the updates to Jira, but here's also like 2 like university courses that you can take for free, or here's here's an infographic from the sales team that like kind of explains like what this is. So we're starting to do more and more of that, trying to like capitalize on the resources that are coming out of the different areas of the business to really like create a curated experience for each one of those personas, and then figure out, because team is sort of like our big enchilada. I'll probably get a soundbite from that, like, from brand, like, don't call it the enchilada, but that's kind of what it is, right? And then like, what can cascade down from that? What can we repurpose and revalue and make it work into like smaller taco bites, which I know is a gross misuse of like Mexican food right there. But like, that's kind of what we're looking at, right? It's like, how do we take it down?
Oh, delicious.
Little guacamole on top.
That's right. How do we spread the guacamole around?
Well, hey, I really appreciate it. I would do this for hours, learn a ton from you guys every time I chat with you. And so just want to thank you again. And yeah, it's always a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Love talking to you guys.
Got it.